morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, to the channel IT Simplified. Hope you're finding these sessions useful and subscribing to channel. In today's video, I'm here to talk about pods in Kubernetes. So if you've been following our track, in the last session, we did an overview on the architecture of Azure Kubernetes services. So we discussed about the master and the worker node. And today we're going to discuss pods, which is a component in the worker node. But before we do that, let's do a quick refresh. So when we talk about a Kubernetes cluster, it consists of two components. You have the master node and a worker node. And as the name suggests, master is the one which controls multiple worker nodes. So let's also quickly check what are the components of the master node. So if you remember from last time, we have the API server through which most of the interaction take place. You have the database. We have the controller manager and the scheduler. So these are all the components on the master server side, right? And when it comes to worker node, we have the agent, the etcd, the kubelet. We have the kube proxy, which takes care of the virtual network. And the piece that we didn't touch upon last time is pod. And this is what we want to concentrate today. So what is pod basically, right? And why that is so important when we talk about Kubernetes. Let me just name this as pod. So think of pod as a logical boundary in which you will deploy your containers, right? But the question arises why you have this concept of pods within Kubernetes. Now, the reason being that, as you know, that what is Kubernetes? It's a container management, also known as a container orchestration tool, right? It's a container management tool. Now, for it, it doesn't matter what technology or what whether we are using Docker or Rocket or Container D or what kind of containerization technology we are using, because it talks to pods. So when we deploy a container, basically a pod is created, which is a wrap around the container, and it assigns a IP to a pod. It's very important. And IP is assigned to a pod. And generally, if you look at in the production environment, it has a one-to-one relationship. It means that one pod will have one container, but it's not restrictive. You can have more than one container within one pod, but from the security perspective, it is recommended that you have one pod with a container. But the important thing is that Kubernetes, from the management perspective, it deals with pods. A pod is assigned a IP, and in the pod, we can have one container, or we can also have more than one container. But generally, in the production environment, from the security perspective, we generally have one container within one pod. Now, talking about some of the other properties of the pods, it doesn't have of its own any auto scaling or auto healing technology or auto healing capability. But wait a minute, last time we touched upon that Kubernetes has all these capabilities. Yes, it has, but we need to add some high level objects of Kubernetes to achieve that, right? And what are these objects? It's a replication set which allows us to auto scale and auto heal. It's important, very important, because we are talking about multiple containers, multiple pods, which should be able to do that. And the object which allows us to do that in Kubernetes is replication step. Then we have the service, because when we deploy a pod, it deploys a dynamic IP, but service will allow us to assign a static IP to pod. Then we also have deployment. which allows us to do versioning and rollback. So say for example, if I write a code with version 1, right, and then a month down the line I create another version, say version 2, and if that is not working for me, I want to revert back or want to roll back. Deployment is the object which allows us to do that. And then you also have volume, which is sitting outside the container. So in case something happens to that container or to that pod, your data will be still intact. So basically a storage. So now if I talk about, say, for example, from Azure perspective, Azure Files can be an example of that. But just again, going back to the pod, along with kubelet and kubeproxy, you will deploy a container in a pod, and Kubernetes deals with the pod. It has nothing to do with what is inside that particular pod. And generally, within a pod, we want to have one container, but it's not restricted to one container. You can have more than one container. But in production environment, you'll find that one pod will have one container. So hope this was clear. So what I want to show you some of the basic commands with respect to pod, and for that, I'm going to use the same Kubernetes service that I used last time. So what I did, I've deleted the application that we deployed when we did the overview of AKS architecture. But let's type in the command just to check how many nodes I have uh, in this Kubernetes service, right? So for the command for that one, you know now, is kubectl get nodes. And you can see that I only have one node. It gives me the version, and when it was created 10 minutes ago. It's just freshly created. Now, what is the command to check if I have any pod? So very simple, kubectl get pods, and you hit enter. And as you can see right now, I don't have any pod. So let's quickly create a pod. And the command I'm going to use is kubectl run. I'm going to name it ws. And the image I'm going to use is nginx. And let's hit enter. So it was created successfully. Now if I type in kubectl get pods, I should be able to see a pod. You can see it's in ready state, it is running, and the name is ws. Now if you have to find the IP address of this pod, as I said that an IP is assigned to a pod, you can type the command kubectl get pods -o byte, and it should give me the IP. So this is the IP of the pod that has been assigned, right? So this is great. Now, if you want to delete this pod, it's pretty straightforward. You can just type in the command kubectl delete pods, and the name of the pod is ws, and the pod was deleted successfully. And you can check that by typing the command kubectl get pods. And now you will see that there's no pod over here. So let me just clear the screen. So let's go a further up. I also want to show, while we are here, also want to show you how you can scale the application. For this, I'm going to use the same YAML file that we did last time, and it is also available on the Microsoft documentation. And I'm going to share that code with you. So let me just type in code and create a YAML file with the name vote.yaml. It will open the editor for me, and I already have this code over here, right? And the command that I'm going to use to create this application is kubectl apply-f, and the name of my YAML file is vote.yaml. And you can see the application was created successfully. Now if I use the command kubectl get pods, let's see what we get and how many pods were created. So you can see there were two pods. Actually, one is still getting created. So let's wait for it. Let me just type the command one more time. Here we go. Now both the pods are created. Now I'm just going to clear the screen. And now if you want to find the IP of both these pods, again, it's the same command, kubectl get pods dash o white, and it should give me IP of both the pods right away, 10.244.0.10, 10.244.0.11. So that's great. Like, so let's go a step further. Now, if you want to scale this application and you want to do just manually, I'm just going to show you the command for that one. Let's increase the number of replicas of my front end. You can always automate this. So the command I'm going to use this is kubectl scale replicas. So how many replicas you want, right? So let's say if I want 3 replicas of my front end, and say deployment with forward slash, and the part that I want to increase the replica is Azure vote, and it is the front end. So I want 3 replicas of this part. So let's hit enter. You can see that that has been scaled. Now if I go and type in kubectl get pods, I should be able to see that has been scaled. So here you go. You can see that the front end has been scaled to 3 pods. And again, each pod has been assigned an IP, and you can check that by going and typing the same command, kubectl get pods. And here you go. So these are the 3 IPs of our pods, right? 10, 13, 11, 12, 13, and basically 10, 11, 12, and 13, right? So this way, at least it gives you an idea about how pods is important within the Kubernetes. And basically, when it comes to deploying the container, it creates a wrap. So it's like a wrap around the container, and generally it has a one-to-one relationship. You can have still more than one container within a pod, but for the Kubernetes perspective, if you look at it, doesn't matter to them that what kind of container technology we are using, because as I said, that you can use a Docker container, you can have a Rocket, it doesn't matter. The whole idea of this Kubernetes with respect to pod is that it's a container management solution, and it does the management by deploying a pod, and in that pod we can have container. Hope you found this video on pods in Kubernetes useful. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.